Have you ever wondered what was going on between the ears of your crush? Ever wondered where things are going with the guy you're dating? Are you dissatisfied with your love life? Are you happily attached but still want to improve things? If so, you have come to the right place. I am proud to share with you that your search is over. You are now listening to
What Is He Thinking?
What is he thinking?
What is he thinking?
the Dating and Relationship Podcast for the benefit of women from the perspective of men. And now, without further ado, your host, Alexander B. Stevens.
What's going on? This is Alexander B. Stevens, the first senior, presenting to you another episode of the podcast, episode 27 overall, episode number 5 of season 2 of the What Is He Thinking podcast, the podcast where we are really actually trying to help women, not pander to women or tell them sweet nothing so we can get into their pocketbooks. In this episode, we're going to conclude the list that the pastor presented to us last episode on the topic, why men do not approach women. If you haven't listened to part 1 of this list, please stop this podcast, go back to the previous podcast and check that out, then come back so you can finish out the rest of this list and understand what's been said and where we're coming from. Without any further suspense or delay, let's get back to it. Here is the thrilling conclusion of the top 10 reasons why men do not approach women today.
Women every day are changing the rules. Men no longer have to approach because today women are the aggressors. The toxic sisterhood is killing you all. Those of you ladies that are committed to, queen consciousness and, classical womanhood, I suppose we may call it, your toxic sisterhood is killing you because while you're holding a certain standard, you have, 8 out of 10 of y'all, your sisters are out here running dudes down in these streets, running them down. Men don't even have to know how to rap no more. They don't even have to know how to have a conversation no more because women are so aggressive.
All right, when the pastor brought up this reason why men don't approach, I thought he was going to go a different direction with it. When he said the rules have changed, I thought he was going to go along the lines of what I spoke about in the biggest issue in the dating world today podcast episode from last year. And he kind of did, but mostly didn't. And he focused on aggressive women making things very difficult for traditional conservative women. And are there more aggressive women now than there used to be? Yes. And even if they're not aggressive, a woman being, for lack of a better term, more sexually free and more open to do things earlier on in the process does change the whole scope of the dating world and the male-female dating dynamic. If there are a good number of women who will either approach a man or they'll make it not that difficult for him to sleep with her, then that's going to make a man used to not putting in a whole bunch of work to get a woman. So when he comes across you, if you're a more traditional or a slower moving woman, he's going to think something's wrong with you because he knows plenty of women that would hop on this opportunity, pun intended, way quicker and easier than you will. So he'll just move on to one of them. So why do men not approach as much as they used to? Because they don't have to. Either the woman will approach them or the woman will be so obvious and over the top with her quote unquote choosing signals that he doesn't have to do much at all. This is the case, especially if he's one of these rare 6 guys.
Number 8, some women present themselves as shallow and vain. And what happens is, society says this is the way you dress, this is the way you carry yourself, and y'all following Instagram, and you all out here in these clubs, in these mirrors, taking these booty shots, putting these booty shots on Instagram, on social media, not realizing that you're attracting all of the clowns and crowns, you're attracting all of the one-night standers, and you're repelling the husband material. Every time you follow, you're just following what society is doing. You're presenting yourself as shallow and vain, and many of you are not, but you're a follower. You've not contacted your individuality enough to lead even your own life. And a woman that, watch this, leads with vanity will attract men that lead with vanity. All you'll attract are men that want you for sex.
Next reason, men don't approach women like they used to because too many women present themselves as shallow and vain. I halfway agree with this reason. I feel like both ends of the spectrum are the problem. In my opinion, too many women today either present themselves as the over-the-top, overly sexualized Jezebel. They present themselves as the over-the-top, materialistic, brand name, high maintenance girl, or they're out here dressing lazy and sloppily in yoga pants all the time and baggy shirts. Either that or they're just straight up dressing like a dude, and I'm not sure if you're into men or not. Bottom line is, men don't approach the way they used to because there aren't that many women that present themselves as approachable and middle of the road, honest, good, sweet, and feminine. It's either all the way over here on the shallow side, the vain side, the materialistic side, the overly sexualized side, or then you have the other extreme, the power suit wearing, am I into girls or guys? Nah, you can't tell. Or then finally, you have the third point of the triangle, the third extreme. I look like I just rolled out of bed and I'm not even trying. There's just no happy medium. Before we move on, I'd like to close with this. This whole reason that the pastor mentions kind of brings me back to the last topic we discussed, which were the reasons why you're single. And too many women do a poor job with their product promotion. Poor product promotion. They do a poor job promoting what they truly are deep down inside, and they do a poor job attracting the type of customer they want to buy. Now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsor, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it's free. Secondly, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Third, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Next, hey, you can even make money from your podcast with minimal listenership. I mean, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So this is what I want you to do. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Fear of accusation. Fear of accusation. If there ever were a time that a queen-conscious woman is going to have to know how to approve, number one, discern a man's spirit, first of all, not just looking at a man for what he looks like, but discern his heart and then approve of his approach, it's now. You know, too many men are getting caught up in accusations. Some are going down rightfully. They've done some dirty, low-down things. But you have other brothers who are looking at this and they're saying, well, man, if I say hello, what could this mean for me legally? And the Bible says in Romans 14:16, let not then your good be evil spoken of. So you have some good men that would love the approach, but they're looking at all of the stuff that's going on and, how complicated and, the political correct thing and all of this kind of stuff. And a lot of these men don't even know how to circumvent all of this stuff. They're interested, but they got to sit back in the cut and wait for you to let them know without any doubt that it's cool for them to approach.
Reason number 9 why men don't approach today is fear of accusation. Now, I've been kind of waiting on this reason. I'm wondering why it's so low on the list, but I'm glad he finally spoke on it, and I definitely 100% agree with this one. The Me Too movement. The Me Too movement, in my opinion, probably has caused more problems than it solved. I'm not saying that the intentions of the movement were bad. I'm not saying that individuals like Weinstein don't deserve to be put in prison. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that if you read up on all the stories and all the times Me Too has been referred to, a lot of that is gray area activity, and it's not so cut and dry like the Weinstein case. Gray area activity. What is that, Alexander B? Well, let me see if I can try to explain it. So you have the mating dance, the male-female non-platonic interaction. Despite the change in our culture that has moved toward egalitarianism and women empowerment, still, when it comes to dating and the first phases of relationships, most women want 1950s traditional style. They want to be pursued. They want to be wooed. They want to be swept off their feet. They want chivalry. They want the guy to pay for dates, etc., etc. So if women aren't going to approach men and men have to approach women, then you are always going to have men approaching you that you don't like or that you wish wouldn't approach you. The Me Too movement opened up the door for men having to suffer consequences for doing a poor job at guessing which woman liked him before he tried to flirt or do something non-platonic to or with her. This whole thing kind of reminds me of a meme I saw online fairly recently, and hopefully some of you have seen it too. It's kind of a comic strip, and it is a guy in an office. He's peeping in an office door to his female coworker, complimenting her, saying, "Hey, you look great." And the female coworker kind of has like word bubbles saying, "Oh, thanks, Henry." And then the next comic slide over, you have a unattractive coworker doing the exact same thing and wishing this same lady a compliment. And then you have the thought bubbles over the lady's head talking about sexual harassment or I'm going to HR. Now, it's kind of a funny little comic strip meme, but at the same time, it is this reason number 9 in a nutshell why men don't approach as much as they used to. All right, here's the thing, ladies. Half the time, most men have no clue if you like him or not more than a friend. So what must a guy do if he is interested in you? He must say something or do something that shows plain and clear and obvious that he is not trying to be your friend. He likes you romantically or sexually, and he wants to be more than friends with you. Men communicate directly and overtly, but the dating and mating game starts off indirect and somewhat covert. And this is not where most men flourish, especially men relatively new to dating. We're not as good at reading body language, context clues, reading between the lines, having a high EQ. We're not as adept at this as many women are. Therefore, men basically have to blindly take a risk, having no idea if you will respond positively or negatively to him, and see what happens in order to have any chance at getting what he wants. Because like I said, for most guys, the majority of the time, we have no clue if you only like us platonically or if you are open to something more than platonic. All right, close your eyes, just think. Put yourself in guys' shoes. You have a chemical running through your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that won't allow you to go more than 12 waking hours without thinking about getting up close and personal with X. The only way you can get up close and personal with X is you have to go through a maze in the dark. And at the end of the maze, if you make it to the end, you have to open up a door, walk in the room, and there's a 50% chance you will find nothing in there. You will walk around in that room, aimlessly wasting time. There's a 20% chance when you walk into the room, you will feel the essence of what you've been looking for. You'll have a sense that you're about to lay hands on what you're seeking, but you will never actually get to lay hands on it. There's a 25% chance that there's a professional fighter in that dark room who will knock you out in one swift kick to the back of the head once you step into that room. And then there's a 5% chance that you actually lay hands on what you seek and get to enjoy it and fulfill your chemically driven desire. Now, if this analogy was real life, exactly how motivated, how enthusiastic would you be to travel in this pitch black dark maze? How eager would you be to open up the door to that room at the end of the maze? How often would you do it? Would you attempt to solve this maze as little as possible or as frequently as you could? What if all of a sudden you started hearing a bunch of news stories and a bunch of chatter amongst your friends that the percentage of people who are getting knocked out when they travel this maze and go to the back room has drastically increased as compared to 40 years ago? How would this affect your decision making? Hopefully this analogy is hitting home and you're kind of understanding the male's plight. First of all, men have to take most of the risks early on, and we don't exactly know what we're doing, especially if we're under the age of 30. But sometimes we have to do something to see how you will react so we know if you like us or not. But if flirting or doing something to see how you will respond can cost us our job or cost us our friends or our freedom, then we are less likely to do it unless you are sending out clear and obvious choosing signals or signs that it is okay. The last thing I'll say on this is that the Me Too movement has decreased the number of places and environments that men feel comfortable approaching women. The workplace used to be one of the top 4 places that people met their spouse. Now, a man has to think 3 times before he flirts with a woman that he works with. So if you cut back on all the places that a man is free and comfortable to approach, the only thing that can happen is that men approach less today than they used to.
And I saved this one for last so I could hit it and get out of here. They ain't approaching because a lot of these dudes are just gay. It's a gay explosion out here. And I mean, I'm just from a different school. This is a time and generation, speaking of being politically correct, that, everybody says there's nothing wrong with it. It's right. Even y'all up in the church trying to say it's right for a man to be with a man. So, I just stick over here with my wife and mind my business and go on about my business. I don't get involved in nobody else's stuff.
Whoa, I wasn't expecting that answer. So his number 10 reason why men don't approach today is that too many of them are a part of the alphabet community. Well, I just disagree with this one. I feel like a better explanation would be men today are more effeminate and less masculine today than they were 2 or 3 generations ago, but not that they are actually a part of the LGBTQIA community. And really, only one of those would specifically eliminate you from wanting to approach women anyway. But let's look at the numbers. According to Gallup, the percentage of individuals that classify themselves under the rainbow flag is 5.6%. And that has risen a whopping 1.1% since the last time they took a poll approximately 4 years ago. And if you dig a little further, most of the increase comes from the fact that more and more women are identifying as B than anything else. So when you look at all these factors, 5.6%, in which less than half of that number actually applies to men, is statistically insignificant when it comes to talking about being a legitimate reason why men don't approach women anymore. So I'm going to throw that out and focus on what I think he should have said as a reason explaining why men do not approach women today. Men of today are not as masculine as they used to be. First, why am I linking the decline in masculinity with the decline of men approaching women? Well, traditionally speaking, amongst other things, the masculine builds, the masculine creates, the masculine hunts, and the masculine protects. At least 3 of the 4, and sometimes all 4, are risky behaviors. These are all behaviors where you somewhat have to put yourself second for either another person or for the greater good of the tribe or society. So in other words, the masculine takes risks for the benefit of his future self and or the benefit of others. So common sense will just tell you that the less masculine someone is, the less willing they will be to take a risk, like approaching a stranger or trying to create love and magic out of nothingness, at the risk of rejection, humiliation, a shot to the ego, or something far worse. Hey, remember that maze example I gave? There definitely was a way higher chance of pain or something worse than success. So if a man doesn't have the proper level of masculinity, if he doesn't have the guts to take a risk and approach, more times than not, he won't. So I'm not going to get too deep into the second part of this explanation, but why are men of today less masculine than men of the past? Multiple reasons. I will just touch on a couple. 1, biological. 2, environmental. And really, both of these could be thought of as environmental, but let me just explain what I'm talking about. The biological aspect of why men aren't as masculine is because testosterone levels not only decline with age, but they are declining by the decade. Meaning a 50-year-old man in 2021 has significantly less testosterone than a 50-year-old man in 1950. Why is this? Well, some experts hypothesize that it's because of 1, obesity levels going up, 2, smoking levels going down, 3, certain changes in chemicals that have gotten into our food sources, both animal and plant, and 4, certain plastics that we store food in, eat out of, or drink out of. So think, if each one of these 4 factors just slightly reduces testosterone for each generation, then cumulatively over 3-4 generations, you will see significant change. The other environmental reason why testosterone levels have dropped, in my opinion, is socialization, especially in the West, in the industrialized countries. The culture is basically, to put it in a nutshell, let's feminize the men and masculinize the women. Some people would say that boys, as they're growing up, both at school and at home, since more boys than ever are growing up without a father, many boys are being raised and being treated as if they are defective girls that need to act right. Right being defined as closer to how the girls his age act. And a lot of things that are in their nature are punished, discouraged, or taught against. So after so much negative reinforcement, a boy grows into a man that has learned how to deny and ignore his true inner masculine core self. Humans are very adaptable, and once they have adapted to not using a part of themselves, like my mama used to tell me as a child, either you use it or you lose it. They lose these abilities, and when society actually encourages them to tap into masculinity for a certain project or for certain activity, such as approaching women and taking the masculine lead in the early stages of dating, many men are unable to do it successfully or consistently. Well, that about does it for this list. Let me recap his top 10 reasons why men don't approach women. Reason number 1 he gave was men don't approach because they do not feel their finances are in order. I felt like this is a reason more for why a man wouldn't propose to a woman, but not necessarily a reason why a man wouldn't approach a woman. If it's really a reason why men don't approach, this is something women you can't do anything about. If it's a reason why a man won't commit long-term legally, then the only thing I can suggest a woman to do is to try to help her man and encourage her man in developing his career and taking care of his finances while they're in a relationship so that he can get to that place where he feels like he can financially be the man, and then he'll want to marry. Reason number 2, women aren't as friendly as they used to be or don't seem as approachable as they used to be. And also, the act of men approaching women in public the way men used to isn't thought of the same way now as it used to be. Too many instances it's thought of as inappropriate, creepy, or something that a woman doesn't want, when once upon a time, everyone pretty much knew that if you're a woman out in public and a guy talks to you, that this is normal and he's trying to win your affection. So let's not make a big, weird deal out of it. What can you do as a woman to mitigate these two things? Well, of course, when you're walking around in public, you can present yourself as more approachable by seeming more pleasant and seeming to be less disengaged from your environment. And then as far as the societal way that they look at men approaching women. You as an individual can't do much about it, but you, your friend group, and women in general can slowly try to turn the tide as a collective. Reason number 3. And this was a good one in my opinion. He said the reason men don't approach is because women too often go out in large groups. Whether it's a large group of girls or a large mixed group of men and women, some of the men being part of the rainbow community. The only thing that's more difficult than approaching one stranger and trying to make something beautiful out of nothing is approaching half a dozen. So, like I've said a few times in this podcast, start going out in pairs. Don't go out in big groups. And if it's the middle of the day and you are in a good part of town, go out alone. That is, if you're single, ready to mingle, and want to be approached. Reason number 4. Men don't approach because women do a poor job sending choosing signals. I definitely agree with the pastor on this one, and I would advise women to make your choosing signals more obvious and send them out more often. If you're halfway interested in a guy and you're unattached, then why not? You never know until you actually explore an opportunity if it's a good one or not. So the subtle things, I winked my eyebrow once, I smiled for 3/4 of a second, I wiggled my left ear twice, so he should know I'm interested in an approach. Nah, you gotta do something more obvious. Go up to him and ask him some innocent, inane question. If he's interested, he'll continue the conversation beyond the question. Or other things. There's many things a woman could do to send out more clear signals that she's interested and open to an approach than women do nowadays. Reason number 5. Men don't approach because they've been embarrassed and there's some trauma there. I didn't think this was one of the better reasons that the pastor gave, but it is a valid reason in certain circles and circumstances. My advice to women would be always decline a man's overtures and requests respectfully, because he might not be your type, but he could be the next woman's type. But the next woman will never get to be in a relationship with him if you destroy his ego and self-confidence by embarrassing him before he gets to meet her, a woman that actually likes him. And why are we here on earth? To make it a better place. And if you have taken that man and that other woman's potential loving relationship away from each one of them due to your harshness and your trauma-causing nonsense, then you're definitely not making the world a better place. Reason number 6. Men don't approach because the average man feels like even the average woman wants this over-the-top extraordinary guy, and he just self-disqualifies because he doesn't think that he will be her type. I blame both men and women for this. I do think women practice over-the-top toxic hypergamy, but I also feel like men have confidence issues these days and they need to work on that. What's the fix for this? At least what's the fix for the ladies? Well, you can't fix anything on a macro level, but on a micro level, I would just say, make sure you have realistic expectations. And like I said in previous numbers, carry yourself as approachable, send out clear choosing signals, and don't be in a large group. And maybe more men who are, yes, can improve your life, but are still in your league will shoot their shot at you. Of course, you want a guy that's going to improve your life, but it's reasonable to expect them to improve your life 1 notch, not 5 notches. And the only way you will know that is if you are able to evaluate yourself on an objective level, which is extremely difficult and is a rare thing in today's day and time. So I guess we're going to have to make a podcast about it sometime at the beginning of 2022. Reason number 7 why men do not approach women today. Men don't approach because women have changed the rules. As society moves forward, especially in the West, we have gone further and further away from traditional gender roles, especially when it comes to dating. So you have some women that approach men, and you have women that are way more sexually free than women were socially allowed to be a couple generations ago. This kind of throws off the natural order of things and can make it more difficult for the woman who wants to be conservative, who doesn't necessarily want to be a sexual butterfly all over the place, or the woman that doesn't want to approach men. So what's the solution to this problem? I mean, there really isn't one that will actually help you. The only solutions would help the following generations, but basically you have to fight through it. Non-traditional women or non-traditional individuals make it more difficult for traditional individuals to identify each other, know the rules of engagement when it comes to the dating and mating dance, and to actually get together and stay together. So it is what it is. Be true to thyself and hope for the best. Reason number 8 why men do not approach women today is too many women present themselves as shallow and vain. My response to this reason is that, yes, that's definitely a problem in some circles, but it's also a problem that too many women present themselves as masculine, and or too many women don't try to present themselves at all. They're not concerned about their promotion. They too often dress sloppy and lazily. So what's the fix to this? Keep yourself up, present yourself as a respectable feminine woman, and by default, you will stand out in the crowd. Reason number 9 why men don't approach women is because of the fear of accusation, a fallout from the Me Too movement. Women have to decide either we're going to start approaching men or we're not going to be so hard on men that approach us. Women need to either become open to the idea of men approaching them anywhere and everywhere, or at the very least, understand that men approach women and he just likes you and it's not that big a deal, not some kind of threat to your safety, and not blow up his life completely if a guy you don't like approaches you in a place in which you would not prefer him to try to approach you. Until women as a collective make it safe for men to be men and approach, you'll just get more and more men that completely rely on online dating to get a woman. More and more men will say forget it all and become addicted to the adult entertainment club or pornography. And fewer women will be approached in the real world. The final reason why the pastor says men do not approach women today is because there are way too many men that are now a part of the rainbow community. I said this was a poor reason that's not supported by statistics, logic, or observable reality. And I said the reason he should have put here was a decrease in masculinity is one of the reasons why men don't approach women today like they used to. Ladies, you can't really do anything about this. All you can do is try to not contribute to the problem for the next generation, but you can't really do anything about this problem for yourself in your current generation. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that list and that discussion. If so, send me an email and I'll do more of these type of podcasts. Next podcast, we're going to close out this subject by me discussing a handful of items that could explain why a man doesn't approach you that the pastor failed to bring up in his list. Be on the lookout for that.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the podcast. Alexander B. thanks you for taking time out of your day to listen to what he has to say. Hopefully, you feel the information shared today has helped you get one step closer to understanding men and one step closer to the type of relationship you have always dreamed of. If this episode spoke to you or you indeed felt that it was helpful, please share it with your friends and followers on social media and text the link to the episode to your inner circle of friends. If you have a future topic suggestion or need any clarification about anything that was shared during this episode, feel free to email the show at whatishethinking@gmail.com or follow and DM the show on Instagram at whatishethinking_podcast. Be clear and concise with your message, and Mr. Stevens will do his best to accommodate you. Once again, we appreciate you lending us a listening ear, and we hope your tomorrow is better than your yesterday. Enjoy the rest of your week. The podcast that is here to help you win with men. Signing off. Until we speak again.